Hello, Early Leadership Institute coaches. This is Barbara Hicks from NEA's Teacher Quality Department. I would like to share my favorite activity from the Eli Kickoff with you now so that you can not only see what it's about, but also understand how you will need to facilitate it during our online kickoff. The activity is called the 3 Frames of Unionism. You can read a description of this activity in the Kickoff Guide for Facilitators on pages 20 through 22. Here's what it's all about. Most of our new members do not come from union families. They might even have been taught that unions are bad. In fact, very few early career educators know what their local union does for them, much less what the state and national levels do. The 3 Frames of Unionism helps them learn what unions do, what they have done, and what they can do. Because this activity will generate different results depending on what local association is using it, we will be asking each coach to lead a separate Zoom with their fellows in order to lead a discussion about local union activities. You will need to invite your local president and the UniServe director to participate in this. The best way to start is with a brainstorm. As a facilitator, you will ask your fellows to share some ideas about what an effective union does. These ideas should be recorded where everyone can see them. You can do this by drafting a simple list in Word and sharing that list on your screen so that people can see their ideas being recorded. Or you can use your choice of brainstorming apps, as long as people can see the list as it grows. After about 5 minutes of brainstorming, you should have a good list that shows what your fellows think an effective union should do. Save this information so that it can be used at the end of the activity. The next step is a card sorting activity. The grid on page 22 of your kickoff guide for facilitators shows the cards. Since this activity is being done remotely, there is no need to cut up the cards and sort them into actual stacks. Instead, you will be instructing your fellows to draw a circle around those cards that are true for their local union. Have them draw a rectangle around the cards that are false for their local union. If they're not sure whether the card is true or false for their union, they can draw, a cloud shape around the card. During this stage of the activity, you might want to give your fellows 10 minutes to do this alone. The president and UniServe should not speak during this time or provide any guidance. As the facilitator, your next job is to tally how many fellows identified each card in each category. In other words, using the grid on page 22, take a quick series of polls and record how many people said that card B1, for example, is true of their union, false, or they don't know. If 7 people said it was true, 3 people said false, and 2 didn't know, mark that card as true since the majority chose true. There are 18 cards, so try to move quickly through this tally, possibly by asking people to do a thumbs up in Zoom. For each card, choose the largest number of responses and then designate that card as having been identified as true, false, or don't know. Next, you address the president and UniServe director. In the next 30 minutes, begin with the false pile. Read out a card that the majority of fellows identified as false and ask the president and UniServe to respond. Often they will explain that the local union does do the activity on the card, and they may wish to give an example. Encourage speakers to limit themselves to 90 seconds per card. When the false cards have been dealt with, move on to the don't know pile. Save the true pile for last. Dealing with the false and don't know cards leads to more learning than the true pile does. Fellows can ask questions during this time, but keep things moving forward so that most cards can be addressed. Now it's time to learn about the 3 frames. Let's find out what industrial, professional, and social justice frames mean for unionism. So there are 3 kinds of unionism. The oldest of these is industrial unionism. Industrial unionism is what brought people together to pursue collective action in the first place. Factory jobs were very low paid long ago and resulted in many injuries and even death. Factory owners felt no responsibility for paying a living wage, or providing any days off during the week, or making the work environment safe. If workers didn't like their working conditions, there were always many jobless people ready to take those positions. So unions advocated for wages, safety, and decent working conditions and enshrined these values in contracts. That's how the weekend was born. In an education setting, industrial unionism views educators and managers as being on opposite sides of an adversarial relationship. Teachers would reach out to parents only to ask their support in a conflict with management. Decisions about schools tend to be made by management. If teachers object, they can file a grievance. In time, professional unionism emerged. Teaching is viewed as a profession, and our job was to turn out high quality products for our students. A big emphasis is placed on professional development, teacher performance, and student test scores. Teachers and managers are seen as cooperating to produce high quality students. The job of the parent is to send a healthy child who is ready to learn to school every day. Contracts focus more on how to work together to produce a high quality student. Some agreements outside of the contract are respected. Social justice unionism seeks equity for our students. Teachers and managers work together in partnership with communities and families, and they work to meet the needs of students and help all students succeed, regardless of their race, culture, or class. Teacher contracts often reflect social justice issues that affect students. With many partners involved, change requires consulting with a wide variety of stakeholders and giving them real decision-making power. Should unions choose a frame and stick with it? Probably not. Although many of our local unions started out with an industrial focus, most have added a professional focus as well. Some unions are strong in social justice, while others are beginning to seek ways to address equity issues for students. Ultimately, unions need to operate in all three of these important frames. Where does your local union do most of its work? In the industrial, the professional, or the social justice frame? After learning about the three frames, ask your fellows to discuss where the majority of the true cards fell on the three frames card list. Is their local association mostly industrial, professional, or social justice in orientation? Next, revisit the list of things that fellows thought were important for a union to do. Ask them if they would like to add anything to that list and make the additions. Where do they think their local union could strive for growth?